What's up, storytellers? I'm C.R. Rowanson, the Magic Engineer, and this is Spells and Specialists, where we use magic and stories to teach technical topics and communicate science. All right, today, as always, we have my co-host, the eco-friendly magus, Lovis. How you doing, Lovis?
Hi, yes, I am Lovis and I live over on the Ecofictology channel and I talk all about ecofiction, reading it, writing it, and how it can be used as a science communication tool, which is why everything we do here is right up my alley and it makes me very, very happy.
Yes, and in this video, our guest this time around is Navarre, who is from the Solarpunk Station channel on YouTube. How are you doing, Navarre? Can you tell us a little bit about you in case they haven't seen the first video, which is already up on Ecofictology?
I'm doing pretty well today. Glad to be here. So I have a background in material science and engineering, and specifically with energy materials, and know a little bit about a lot of things in the renewable space, which kind of came out in the last video. And I also run the Solarpunk Station blog and YouTube channel, as Clark mentioned.
And what do you talk about on the blog and channel?
It's solarpunk themed, so sort of the interaction of science, technology, and society, and how we can get to a brighter future. And for those who aren't familiar, solarpunk is sort of the opposite side of the coin of cyberpunk. So a future we want to go to as opposed to one we want to avoid.
Right, right. I know a big part of solarpunk is that more hopeful aspect where a lot of the punk subgenres are more depressing. A lot of them are less hopeful. Solarpunk is a lot of the setting vibe, but with that that hope and growth added into it. Very cool. So yeah, in the video over on Ecofictology, we just talked with Navarre about a whole bunch of stuff related to grid storage of energy, solar panels, capacitors, batteries, and just generally made obnoxious nerds of ourselves, as we do.
As we do, that is our MO, really.
And what we're going to do now is we're going to try and take all of that and start digging around to find a seed crystal for a magic system that we will use to tie into these factoids and information and eventually make it part of a story so that we can communicate these concepts. I do want to do really quick recap both of some of the key takeaways and then what we were most drawn to from the last video. So what we ended up settling on with the 3 take-home messages were: 1, that energy management is actually all about energy transformation. And 2, every system has inefficiencies, and when you're dealing with energy, that comes out as waste most of the time. 3, to get useful work, you need opposing charges or forces, and you need movement. So, Navarre, I know you, like, all of this stuff was in your head already, but from the conversation with Lovis and I, what was some stuff that really stood out? What did you enjoy talking about? Were there some concepts that you really ended up just focusing on?
I think kind of that first point of, at least as far as where it plugs into magic systems and maybe storytelling, is that transformation element. Because things being able to change, of course, is important for a story. Otherwise, a story about someone watching paint dry is, I guess, still a story of change, but not a very exciting one.
Slow change, very slow change.
Yeah, so there's a kinetic element to it as well, I guess. But I think the capacity for change and transformation, I think, kind of lends itself toward magic and storytelling both. Because I think people don't usually that I guess there are like sleeping curses and things. Those are kind of like the opposite of change because they keep things static.
Right. All right.
Jumping straight to the magic. I like it.
Lovis, what about you?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of, my mind is kind of blown with all the stuff that you taught me today. But I like,
that's how the first video usually goes.
As per usual. I mean, this is really all this is for an excuse for me to nerd out about stuff. So I think the thing that created the most immediate image in my head was probably the dendrites. These like lithium icicles or stalactites that form when ions poke holes in the separator between the two electrodes in the electrolyte. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Order is just a little different. The stalactites form, which eventually poke through.
Yeah.
So they don't form once they poke through.
Okay.
They are formed. They are formed, and as they form, that causes them to poke through.
Got it. That makes actually more sense. Yeah, good. Yes. Okay. I understand. But these like this like almost like a ticking clock, you know, as things happen and the particles move and they build up and eventually
it doesn't happen all at once. So
yeah, it doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow process, but then once they've poked through, then the two sides are connected and everything goes boom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that kind of like ticking clock and expiration date kind of thing. I like that.
Okay.
That was like 5 things, sorry.
Hey, we weren't limited to like one thing. I think that's fine.
What about you, Clark?
I was really interested as we were talking about some of the solar panels with the whole inefficiencies in ways that I didn't think of, and I really I feel like I really should have, because with my background in chemical engineering and some of the stuff that I've done with some of the research I've done with energetic materials, heat buildup and heat transfer is a big deal. So just because a transformation is more efficient doesn't mean it's good for you, because you may end up with a more rapid buildup of stuff that you don't have anything to do with. I'm really liking that idea. I don't know how we're going to tie it in, but I think there's some great applications there for how that can connect. Were there any other like interesting terms or phrases that really leapt out to you guys as we went through this?
I mean, I really like this image of the multi-junction panels, solar panels, where you like stack the materials and each material reacts to different wavelengths of light, and so then you get a more complete capture of the energy contained in that light. And that was where you were talking about the doping, the adding additives to a material to create a difference in charge, and then the photon comes in and creates a reaction, and that's where you get your movement from, right? And so I kind of like that image of stacking different materials to take advantage of different parts of that wavelength.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I guess to kind of
the problem I have is I have ideas swimming, but this isn't meant to be my magic system. This is meant to be yours, Navarre. So
I've been thinking to some extent, because of that anode and cathode, sort of those opposing, I guess if we move into a magic system, forces, I don't know if I'd call them forces so much as elements in the system, but I was thinking, especially coming at this from sort of the solar punk lens, where we're trying to figure out how to tell stories that are less hero's journey and one person saving everything so much as collaborative. I think it'd be interesting if it was not a magic system that someone could use on their own, that different people had different
that's cool.
either positive or negative charges, and that coming out of that, you have to work with a partner, or maybe you can do a circle or something of multiple people, but you have to have at least 2 people, or maybe you can do it with maybe other creatures on the planet can also do it. Maybe people have familiars and you can do some stuff, but there may be drawbacks. Either it's not as strong, or maybe if it's more wild and
Okay.
unpredictable if you have a familiar
I
instead of
like it.
another human to do magic with.
Okay.
I like it a lot. I like it a lot.
Couple of questions.
Only a couple?
We got the standard questions first, right? So what hooks you in a story? Like when you're reading, playing a game, or doing something, what element of the story is it that reliably hooks you? And if it's good, you'll put up with more garbage than you would otherwise. So for me, magic system is super important. Person I was working with earlier this week, character is super important. If he was reading something where there were compelling characters, he would forgive a lot of sins and world building and plot and magic because he liked the characters. What is that thing that hooks you?
I think it is characters. I wouldn't have told you that like probably 5 or 10 years ago, mostly because I don't think I realized that about myself, because I very much get into the magic system and the world building, but if the characters are, especially the POV character voice, is not something I can relate to, I feel like it's a lot harder for me to care about those details and get into the story. So yeah, I
Makes
think
perfect sense.
I think I am a character reader, although I didn't know it until recently. I read a book recently where the characters were just not engaging for whatever reason. It might just be they didn't resonate with me, and I was like, some of this stuff is really interesting, but and I finished it. I mean, it was only a novella, so it wasn't a huge investment of time either, but I was like, that was an okay book. Like, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't enough to really make me want to go back.
So when you're telling stories or coming up with stuff or exploring your own ideas, what sparks it all for you? Again, for me, it's simple. It's magic systems. Everything for me comes from magic systems. Lovis, I don't know if we've actually, I think for you, was it setting for you?
It was world building for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like with Lovis, we had to go through a bit about the ecology and the environment before we could
Yeah,
really
it's the environment. It's the ecology for me.
surprise.
I'm an ecology nerd. I know.
So for her, once she has the setting, that can spark all the kinds of ideas. What sparks ideas for you? Is it characters again, or is that where it's more setting?
I think it's more
Theme?
setting or world building and how that interacts with theme. Sort of, if you have, like, to use alternate history for an example, like what if this thing got invented in a different time or this thing didn't happen? Like, how does that splay out into society? So it'll definitely impact characters, but characters, I think, are my way in, but they sort of translate all of that for me. But the world building is kind of where I start with the idea of, okay, well, what if?
So let me ask you this. If you pick up a book and the author very clearly and succinctly states a enticing what if question, would you put up with less than stellar characters? I'm not going to say you have to put up with bad characters, but would that be enough to let you put up with less than stellar characters just to see how that question ripples throughout their world?
Yes, I would definitely read it.
Okay.
Better characters would probably make me feel like they translated it better, but
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
I mean, that all makes sense with your fascination with solar punk, isn't it? Because it
does.
is about the aesthetic and about the whole society and world building and how that reflects this theme of, you know, collaboration and social justice and hope and all these things. So
Yeah.
those two things tie in together. So that makes total sense that is something that intrigues you.
Makes perfect sense. And I think we'll have an answer for this pretty quickly, but what is your favorite form of magic? Do you like more arcane magic? Do you like more Lovecraftian magic? Do you like monsters? Do you like alien biology? Do you prefer technology? Do you prefer more magical technology? Which of
I
those
like sort
was your
of
favorite?
where there's, I mean, I come from an academic background, so of course, having depth to the magic system is always nice, and understandable rules. I've I've been to a lot of conventions where Brandon Sanderson was, so that might give you an idea of my headology there. But although for some reason in my own writing it tends to come out more on the zany end of things. But as far as when I'm reading things, I like things to have rules a lot of the time. But I really like investigating the sort of the Arthur C. Clarke idea of sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and both directions of that, and how in a society where you are developing technology but you also have magic, how do those two things interact? And if you're in a somewhat ordered magic system, like what's the line between science and magic, and is there one?
Okay. So what about magical creatures? Would you still be interested as long as you could still go through that kind of scientific analytical analysis of what they are and what they do?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I think just through solar punk, it sounds like you probably lean more heavily towards tech than anything else. But that's just kind of the nature of the genre. It sounds like you would be equally happy doing it with monsters magic or magic tech, so long as you could do that kind of investigative development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm more interested in the investigation, and also trying to have any changes that happen are toward a more positive direction. And it can be in a secondary world where they're unicorns or
Okay.
Bigfoot or whatever. But,
okay. Okay. That's good to know. And just this is already answering one of the first questions that will be in the next video when we talk about the types of magic. I'm pretty confident that we're going to be in the on the rational side of this. We're probably going to be in the soft rational portion of the spectrum. But we'll talk about that more later. Okay. So
I can see very clear magical tech applications coming out of
Yes.
this whole conversation about batteries and energy and electricity and everything.
Which as a side note, the difference when I say magic tech and magic tech, the difference really comes down to a matter of the core element of transference and prevalence. Who has the magic? If it's true tech, what that means is that anybody with the know-how can produce the item, which can then be transferred to anybody. Magic tech has been developed in a way so that the magic once created can be transferred to anybody, but the creation of those objects is still limited to very specific people. They haven't been able to transfer the capability to create this stuff. So if you're looking at D&D, enchanted items, wizards can enchant items and they can be handed out. They haven't been able to just transfer the ability to enchant items. No, like you can't have just anybody come up and start enchanting. And that's really the difference there, and it affects the economy and the setting in some minor but important ways. And the only reason I bring that up is not because I love it, which I do, but because I think that could be important depending on where we go with the story we come out of this, because I think we could go either direction, and I wanted to make that clear from here so you can start processing that. Because that will change the nature of the societies we deal with, whether it's a limited number of people that do all of the production and they're the only ones who can do the production, or if the production can be mass produced and replicated. So something to think about.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out where to go from here because it's got a lot of ideas.
You want to try the word association?
Yeah, it felt very natural when we did that with Moya, and I've tried to think of ways to do it since, and I'm not sure, but we'll give it a shot. Okay, so let's just do let's try the word association, and it's just like the first thing that comes to your head when I throw out a term. So, and this is just bearing in mind everything we've talked through. Ship.
Waves.
Flying.
Okay.
Crew.
Storage.
Limit.
Cargo.
Okay. Power.
Energy.
Charge.
Mastery.
Knowledge.
Training.
All right, this isn't quite doing it for me this time around.
Okay.
I'm getting some stuff. But so we know setting and world building is important for you. So we want to move towards a specific type of magic system. And to do that, we're going to have to do a little, bit of setting building. Do you just want to go with a standard kind of solar punk setting? Or would you like to try and build something new? Like this is going to be our starting place, and then we're going to branch out to try and find something a little unique.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the advantages of solar punk tends to be near future, usually on Earth. So I'm kind of trying to think of whether to do hidden or revealed world near future Earth, or to do a secondary world. But I think I'm almost tempted to say near future hidden on Earth, just because it's more complicated. But I feel like secondary world would make it
So
simpler from a people who have had this for a while sort of standpoint.
Here is what has been bouncing around in my head, and I've been, and that is the thing with going through this process, is it's not always easy. Like we have been very lucky so far, where a lot of times they have sort of just tumbled out. Finding the seed crystal can be tricky. And I didn't even really talk about what the seed crystal was. If anybody watching this isn't familiar, talked about it in a lot of my other videos, but really what we're looking for is that it is that core point of inspiration that when you find it, everything else starts rapidly growing around it. Just like a seed crystal in a lab, when you drop it into a supersaturated solution, the crystal just rapidly forms on top of your seed crystal. And we're looking for that moment when our eyes light up and we start getting setting ideas, we start getting story ideas, we start getting magic ideas. So here is I'm just going to toss out what I had in my head, and then we're going to try and turn it into something that is more yours, Navarre, rather than it just being a Clark system. What is leaping out to me as fascinating is if people uncovered a new a new you're going to have to help me with the terms, but they discovered a new form of energy, a new quanta particle. I know those terms aren't right, but they discovered a new quanta that is magical energy. It is a magical energy particle, and that was what was discovered, and that has started to unfold into this entire field of this quanta management. So it is an addendum, an expansion to all of our current energy science and knowledge with a brand new, is it particle or would it be quanta? What would we call that?
I mean, since a photon is a quanta, probably most quanta are probably wavicles.
Wavicles.
What's a
I've never
wavicle?
heard that word before. I love it.
I don't know if it's common or I just ran across it somewhere once, but because light has both particle and wave nature, I think it depends on how you're looking at it because of observer effect shenanigans. But yeah, so I've heard the term wavicle applied to the photon. I don't know if I've actually heard anyone call a photon that, but I would assume that it acts similarly.
I love that.
So what if we just say that humanity has discovered a new energy quanta that they have called blank, and that is the source of a new wave of ingenuity, magic, and technology?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that would fit with near future on Earth. And we can always use the LHC as a plot device and things that it can't actually do, like everyone loves to do. So, or maybe it will. Maybe this will really happen. So we'll have life imitating art.
Wouldn't that be great? Yeah, I mean, I like that in terms of, you know, does it solve our energy crisis kind of thing? And is it something that, because in current predictions, we don't have a magic wand that we can wave to reverse or halt the progress of what we've kind of set in motion now. So if we find this magical wavicle, is that something that could potentially halt that process, or at least slow it down? And have we incorporated it into most forms of technology? And then do we find out that it actually is not limitless, that it's not infinite?
So first thing I want to ask is, with that sentence alone of I've refined it and made up a completely name that sounds just on the spot name that sounds ridiculous, and people will get a good laugh out of it, I'm sure. But humanity discovered a new energy quanta that they have called Farcanes, leading to a new wave of magic, technology, and development. What does that sentence do for you? Does that start giving you ideas of what's going to be happening in the world, what people are going to be doing with it, how the magic might work? Or is it still kind of
I think on Earth, I think that gives us, like, I see a lot of multiple things kind of coming out of this one inflection point. Because you have, okay, well, we're trying to transition away from fossil fuels. So do we have is this useful as a new energy source? You have the issues of, okay, well, we have this new energy source. How do we efficiently manage it? And what sort of waste products do we have? Because one thing we didn't get into the previous video is also, like, a lot of energy materials are actually super toxic, like lead acid batteries.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff in solar cells is heavy metal. There are a lot of heavy metals. So what sort of things do we need to harness this? And as long as they're correctly maintained and disposed of, they're not a problem, as long as you keep them in those technical cycles they use in the circular economy speak. but how do we deal with both, like, is there material waste? Is there, as far as our energy waste, are we getting waste thermal or radiation? Well, who
Yeah.
knows? And then also, because it's a new energy source, like, are we going to be both, are we solving our energy problems, but are we also looking at, are there entities trying to weaponize this and causing more?
Yeah.
We're both easing some geopolitical tensions over resource management, but causing new ones over new horrible ways to kill people.
And part of what I was thinking is because, the energy management is all about transformation, right? This now gives us another form that we can transform energy into.
Mhm.
So if you have a source of these Farcanes, then you want to convert those into other forms of energy, but we might also be able to start doing things like converting radiation into Farcane energy and
Mhm.
storing it there and seeing what happens there. And there's all kinds of things you could explore, both as it being hopeful and a whole bunch of unforeseen consequences,
Yeah.
just like there always is with any kind of scientific development.
Yeah, because the story's not interesting if it's all sunshine and rainbows. So
Yeah, you want it to
Gotta
be
have
hopeful,
conflict.
but not
Not
flawless.
utopian.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
just optopian.
So I've modified it a little bit, and I always feel kind of bad when I do this, where I like come up with it because I'm not trying to take control here, but then I do anyway.
No, you're fine.
So
This is your area of expertise, so
I've tweaked it just a little bit, and the key here is I want it to be something that is sparking ideas for you guys. And it sounds like we've already started that in terms of the possibilities of how some of this could play out. So I've tweaked it a little bit that I think is going to add a little more refinement to the implications it's going to have. So humanity has discovered a new energy quanta they have called Farcanes, expanding the field of energy sciences and expanding the field of energy science and management, leading to a new wave of technology, magic, and innovation. So I specifically wanted to call out the science and management because in my mind, if we draw that connection, there's going to be a lot of patterns and rationalization that already exists in the world that we can just co-opt into this magic system. So
would that also allow us to include Navarre's idea about a collaborative system that has the opposing elements that have to work together in order to create this magic?
Yeah, I mean, that has to do with how you actually convert it
Use
from
it,
this, because like a photon is just a photon, but converting it, you need the system to convert it either the photoelectric panel or
Yeah.
even
So
more
maybe
simply for like solar thermal, you need like something to heat up, but it has to interact with something before it does anything useful. So maybe you need
Okay, so what do we call that relationship between like the cathode and the anode? Is there a term for that? Because what I'm trying to think is if we can capture that. What I'm thinking is rather than focusing on how it's energy, like what it leads to, like a new wave of magic, technology, and innovation, that's kind of a given. I'm wondering if we can develop the seed crystal a little bit more to talk about the nature of how the Farcanes interact and can be used. So I don't know if maybe if we say something where, where not just material, but people and places can act as magical electrodes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If people are the electrodes is where my head was going.
So
or creatures.
Maybe to zoom out for a minute. So if this is Earth and near future, like, and we assume that to some extent magic is already real, but we don't. And people who are magical practitioners, a lot of the time there are associations between like certain effects and certain, like say trees or gemstones or whatnot. Maybe all of that is real, but we've never condensed or codified it so that all of that is real, but the effect is so weak that people were able to brush it off as magic is not real.
Right.
But it actually was, but it's sort of like going from a naturally occurring like herbal medicine to a condensed pharmaceutical type.
Right.
I'm not sure where I was going with that, but sort of like all of this has always been that way. But then once we kind of apply the scientific method to it, and we're like, okay, well, what's actually causing this? So both people who are magical practitioners figure out something that they hadn't over the course of human history so far. So they become both, well, not individuals, but groups of people, maybe even going on to that. So I feel like I have multiple forks going here. Maybe that's good or bad, but so you have kind of the scientific fork of we're studying why this happens, but then you also have like, and maybe there's sort of and maybe the conflict is between these two different paths based on this discovery, where there are also people who can directly harness this energy, but they're like, oh, I needed to work with someone else to begin with.
Here's my question then.
Okay.
Do you want this magic to be something that we use or to be something that we are part of? Because physics, chemistry, biology, those are all things we use. A fair bit of them we use inherently due to the nature of our existence. But when we use them, we are using them externally to ourselves. Or do you want it to be something that we as people and as magic users are inherently part of the functioning of the magic?
My first inclination is to just say yes.
To both. Okay.
That's a valid answer. To kind of back that up, I think it would be interesting to use this as both science communication that way, but also to kind of maybe examine the theme of humans as nature versus humans over nature.
Yeah.
And maybe play those two off of each other as, and maybe like Lova said, maybe that, and I think you said too, Clark, just some of the unintended consequences of, well, we figured out how to weigh orders of magnitude increase our ability to use magic, where before it was like, maybe it's real, maybe it's not. You can explain it away by coincidence versus, okay, we definitely have an obvious effect here and we can maximize it and whatnot, but how do we, should we do that? And how do we do that? If we're going to, how do we do it?
Okay.
Without being a jerk.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that
Clark
image.
sad because I'm making things over.
No. You're
I think he's happy that we're moving away from what he thinks he was taking over.
Yes, like at the end, like I want this to be yours, and it's or at the very least ours, which it is turning into something that is more ours. Okay. So there's always going to be implications with stuff, right? One of the implications is new wave of technology, magic, and innovation, because we have discovered an entire new thing. That's kind of a given. Another part of this is that this is going to be a dedicated field of science from what we have. I think that is also a rational extrapolation. So what if specifically for the seed crystal, so the seed crystal isn't supposed to be this giant whole encompassing concept. It can be. It can also be a very, very specific part that is just the most evocative, that gets you most excited. So how about this? Humanity discovered a new energy quanta they have called Farcanes, and learned that people, places, and creatures can act as electrodes in magical batteries.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, because even just watching, you're both like smiling more and like, yeah, ideas.
Yeah.
ideas.
I think that's definitely the concise. Everything else
Yeah.
can flow from that. Yeah.
Everything else can float from that, and it does allow for both somebody to be part of it and to use it, because there will always be people who are willing to use other people or other creatures for their own.
And it also
things.
means that we may have like magical batteries the same way we have alkaline batteries, right? Where it's an external thing, and we built up this charge in this process through external means. But the key discovery is that we can use some of these more metaphorical and esoteric concepts, such as people, places, and creatures, as the electrodes.
Yeah, I like that.
Dope.
Yeah, I really like that. That's cool.
All right. I think we have found the seed crystal. It took a little refinement to kind of pare it down to the right version. But that is super cool, and just the way that is stated is going to make it really easy to tie in all of the take-home messages that we have, and even communicate as much or as little as you want about all of the energy science stuff, because you, Navarre, could just take everything you know and you just apply it to these Farcanes, just like it applies to phonons, photons, and other stuff, and just extrapolating that out and how the technology is going to work. And I'm just now trying to think what like Farcane, obviously Farcane is a type of Quanta, so I don't know what it would do to the matter. But if you're doing a magical battery, what kind of dendrites would form due to Farcane transfer?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
that's cool.
What would that look like? Like, what would that be?
Farcane dendrite.
Would it be like your aura starts to get all super spiky and aggressive and can like damage the world around it? Is it like that's now producing like weird magical interference and disruptions?
And then you start becoming like a risk to the thing that you're connecting to, with either the creature or the place or the other person, because you're poking them with your dendrites.
Yeah, or it could be something that dissipates over time. But if I've established, like if Navarre and I have established ourselves as a battery to do a specific thing, we would have to be careful, because if we did it too much, this Farcane equivalent of dendrites could rupture the battery, and that would be bad for both of us and probably everybody around in between us.
And you have to have a system in place for getting rid of the excess as you go along. There's some kind of grid where you can feed into, that you get rid of all your excess energy.
Or at the very least, you would have to change up the type of batteries you were a part of to help mitigate that and erode them away. And I think that fits really nice with the solar punk, because that could, especially if people are using themselves as these batteries, that's going to build in a lot more motivation for ways to do it sustainably.
For sure. And it encourages the connection with nature kind of thing, if you can also use other living creatures as and if they can affect you kind of thing, then you take more responsibility of taking care of them.
And if there's a certain, assuming there's something similar to a band gap with these, then you could go back to, like Lois was talking earlier about the multi-junction cells. Maybe you have, it kind of can also backdoor in some diversity and inclusion themes, which are big in solar punk, like as far as like, as a community, if we have a more diverse community, then we're able to harness more of this Farcane energy.
We can have Farcane sailing ships.
Sailing ships?
Instead of it being like solar winds and like solar sails, they can be Farcane sails on these ships that are just picking up on like the cosmic waves of Farcanes to drive them forward. That could be cool.
That'd be cool. I think it's cool. Solar sails are cool. So.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah, we definitely found the seed crystal, and
I think so.
We are We're getting very excited, which means we actually need to tone it down and wrap up this video. So, Navarre, if people have enjoyed learning about this, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Solarpunk Station here on YouTube and also my blog. I only have a few videos so far, but I have over 100 articles on the blog, obviously of varying quality. I won't guarantee they're all 100% awesome, but I've been writing there for a while, and I'm on Twitter at Bartz Navarre, and I'm sure we'll have links down in the description to all that fun stuff.
Yes, absolutely will. And
Yes.
Lovis, what about you?
Well, you can find me over on Ecofictology, and that is hopefully where you came from to watch part 1. And it is where you will go to watch part 4, where we create the story from the magic system we're going to build in the next bit.
Yep. The next video we're going to do is we're going to take the seed crystal and we are going to plug it into the magic system blueprint and have an absolute blast as we enjoy the implications of these different pieces of the magic system. And we're going to have to try very hard not to turn that into an absolutely monster of an episode.
Very hard. We'll try very hard.
Well, it's probably not going to happen, but we will try. So, oh man, this is great. Thank you so much, Navarre, for joining us. It's always great to like learn this new information and then end up in these weird, interesting spaces that we could not have been on our own. So, yeah, okay, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you go check out Navarre, check out Ecofictology, like and subscribe to any and or all of us. Yeah, just thought
that would be ideal.
Go check those out. Thank you so much for being here. Whatever you do, keep writing and stay awesome.